What's up, everybody? Welcome back to your favorite New York Jets subscription podcast, Badlands. I'm your host, Joe Caporoso. Sunday AM coffee. Going to finish up our positional rundown today, talking tight end mostly, but just pass catchers in general. Basically, our last one before the league year really kicks up. It's been nothing short of a content avalanche here at Badlands, so make sure you catch up on all the extra episodes and content we've had from all the guys being down at the scouting combine in Indy. We also finished up Streets of Fire last week, episode 5 with DJ Bienemy, episode 6 with Dan Hansis. I think we'll do a surprise episode 7 at some point in March. So if you haven't yet, go catch up on all 6. They're evergreen, so listen to them when it best suits you. Obviously, we're getting ready for the league year about to start. We'll have our annual free agency guide live this Friday, about 4 or 5 days before tampering really ramps up. That whole week is always a bit of a chaos land, but make sure you look out for the free agency guide. So we're going to talk tight ends. I do want to, again, remind you guys that I think we're doing like 20 podcasts a week right now, 21, something like that. Maybe it's a little less. It feels like 20 a week. To keep that energy and keep that flow going, happy to continue to use Magic Mind, which has been a partner of this show for a long time and something that I use to help start my day in the morning, not as a coffee replacement, but goes well with my coffee, tastes good, quick little shot in the morning to get my energy going. They also now have the little sleep elixir that goes with it. Same thing, little shot, tastes good, helps calm the mind. You sleep well at night, you wake up, you get a little energy. What I also like is they have a really nice, convenient subscription package, free shipping that comes with every subscription, easy delivery to the house every single month, easy cancellation process without any questions asked, money back guarantee on your first purchase with no questions asked and no need to return the bottle. They come in 15 bottle cases, 30 bottle cases, whatever works best for you. Subscription is always how I've consumed Magic Mind. So because of that, I think you should click the link on the bio that we'll have here and get up to 48% off with the code JETS20, which I'll also reference down in the description of this episode. Magic Mind continuing to help power Badlands. All right, let's talk tight end. We've talked a lot about this position the last couple of years, and there's always, I feel like, a little debate around it. Is it actually that big of a need? Is it actually that big of a priority? There was a lot of time and energy into debating Brock Bowers last year and the merits of drafting him. Bowers was an excellent prospect who was immediately awesome for the Raiders. I still think, like many, it's completely fine the Jets to go Lou Fasciano because he's going to be a really good left tackle for a really good long time, maybe even a great left tackle. And they badly needed that role and need that role for next year. So it worked out for the Jets. Now, they were okay at best, again, at tight end. Tyler Conklin's basically been the guy for a few years, and he's been fine. Sometimes he's been held back by bad quarterback play. He got in the end zone a little more this past year after getting into it far too infrequently the previous few years. I would say he's a perfectly competent, more of 1B or a 2 at this phase, and he's a free agent too. And I'm curious to see if the Jets, do you get him back 2 years, $12 million, 1 year, $7 million? Feels like shorter term, slightly lower money. I don't think they have to break the bank with what the production level's been at in recent years. A good guy to have in the room. I think a good pro, good veteran, has a little versatility, just not extremely dynamic really in the passing game. And I think the Jets just need more. And you really can't count on Jeremy Ruckert at this phase to be more. It's been here 3 years, no touchdowns, struggled catching the football last year. Had a couple signs of being able to contribute as a blocker. And look, maybe new offense, new system, new coaching staff, revitalizes him a bit, but you can't bet on him being a difference maker for you. He's really battling for a roster spot more than anything with this new regime. Yeboah, depth player, special teams player, free agent. I could very well see him following Boyer and Saleh out to San Francisco. You're not going to count on him for anything. It's kind of a clean slate year, especially if Conklin leaves in free agency. And I think 50-50 he's back. I think he wants to stay, and I think if it's for the right money, I could see him staying. The Jets need more, though, right? Tight end is an increasingly critical position, I think, in today's NFL. You need that ability to be dynamic from that position, guys that you can move around. You've seen how the Bills have invested. You've seen the impact it's made for the Eagles and Chiefs throughout the years, for the Ravens, all the teams who are regularly competing for a Super Bowl. They are getting meaningful production from the tight end position, both as pass catchers and blockers, but particularly as pass catchers, and the versatility of guys who could move around the formation and in many cases kind of act as an oversized slot receiver and just be a matchup nightmare for opposing defenses. And the Jets they just haven't had that. And you think about what Laporta did for the Lions in recent years and how he worked off St. Brown. That has to be in Engstrand's mind as he's working to put together this offense. How can they get more dynamic? It wasn't like Laporta was a first-round pick, so maybe that gives them more optimism. They could find that kind of player in the middle rounds. Tyler Warren is going to be a discussion point, right? If Mason Graham isn't there, if quarterback doesn't end up being a thing, he will get some serious consideration. And some people will say, oh, trade down and maybe you could get him then. If you feel like the guy could be a dynamic playmaker and you could get him at 7, you take him at 7. The guy has the size and the ability to contribute on every down that I have a hard time seeing him not being immediately impactful in the NFL and being a good starter right from day one. And that's the kind of thing where you pair him with a veteran like Conklin and you could do some real damage in 12 personnel, especially if you're lighter at wide receiver around Garrett Wilson. You say, we're in a transitional year at receiver around GW. We have Warren, we have Conklin, we have Brees, Braylon Allen, and Isaiah Davis. All those guys can catch the football and move around the formation. We're going to run a lot of 12. We're going to run the football a good amount, and then we're going to go play action and take advantage of the things that Warren could do as a pass catcher and obviously Garrett Wilson could do as a pass catcher. You will not hear any complaints if the Jets take Tyler Warren. I think he's being a little undervalued as a prospect. I'm curious to see where he nets out in our holy draft guide. It does not feel like a crazy stretch for me at 7 value-wise. Is he my number one choice? No, I'd like to see the Jets get Graham. Him and Tet are kind of like 2A and 2B for me. I'm not going to be complaining about either of those dudes. So let's see how that shakes out. I know it is a bit of a deep tight end class. Maybe the Jets want to go looking on day 2 or day 3. I just think there is a world that this is the year they are proactive in getting a tight end. And if it's not the draft, do they look at some other veteran options? It's not, loaded with overly exciting options. Juwan Johnson's name comes up a lot. He's got some interesting athleticism, could kind of be that oversized slot. They haven't had a player like that who, if he can stay healthy, can he be productive for them in the pass game? A guy like Gesicki's a free agent, was okay for the Bengals last year, can get open and catch the football, sort of, again, functions like a receiver. These are the kind of names that are likely to hit the market. Do you try to, work with the Raiders and make a trade for Mayer, who they were interested in a few years ago? It was a different regime, though. He has less of a role now that they have Bowers. You got to kind of maybe get creative and, poke around on some other teams that have some depth at the position, because it's not, necessarily going to be an easy, immediate solve in free agency. It's not overloaded with talent at that position, but a veteran addition, certainly wouldn't hurt. And again, it does remain up in the air if Conklin's even going to be back or not. He might want to go try his luck somewhere else. So I kind of feel like the Jets are definitely going to draft a tight end at some point. The question is just how high. And I think they'll add a veteran. It's just how much money they're going to spend. I know that's not groundbreaking news here, but I expect 2 new meaningful additions to that room, with or without Conklin coming back. I don't think Yabo will be back. And I think Ruckert will be back, but competing for a roster spot, not a starter, not a guy guaranteed to even be the backup tight end. And if we kind of fan out and talk about the rest of the pass catching situation, I think it's a little jarring, but you got to remember, if you look at the Jets receiver depth chart right now, it is Garrett Wilson and nothing. Devontae Adams won't be here. Al Lazard won't be here. We have no idea what Malachi Corley is. I am hopeful that Engstrand can get something out of him and make him a useful, at least rotational player. I don't think Xavier Gibson is going to be part of their plans going forward. And that's kind of it, right? So regardless of what you do with tight end, you probably need 2 additions at receiver. Maybe that's one in the draft. Maybe that's one in free agency. Maybe the Jets are going to be more proactive in the veteran trade market as well. There's an interesting enough wide receiver market in free agency. It's about what you'd expect. You're looking at names like Josh Palmer, Darius Slayton, De'Ami Brown. Does Christian Kirk hit the market? Yeah, there's guys out there who have played and like chewed up a lot of reps and could add some production for you. Tim Patrick, Demarcus Robinson. Maybe they even get two of these guys who are going to end up being relatively lower cost. We've talked about Slayton previously on the pod. We've talked about Patrick on the pod. Robinson's coming off a pretty productive year and has a nose for scoring touchdowns and stretching the field. Palmer, it never really clicked for him with the Chargers, but with the athletic frame, has some upside to be potentially a productive number 2 receiver. Kirk, I don't hate. He was just overpaid like crazy in Jacksonville and is a guy who can move around the formation and has been a productive pro. Interesting name worth looking at if he's there for the taking. There'll be guys out there the Jets can go get, and they got to be aggressive here. You've got to give Garrett Wilson some help. That pass catching depth chart right now, when you added the tight ends and the receivers, is kind of terrifying because remember, Conklin's not under contract. So it's Garrett Wilson and Malachi Corley and Jeremy Ruckert. Like, oh my God, like the Jets have to go make some meaningful moves to improve this situation. So I would familiarize yourself in the free agency guide with the wide receiver names, with the tight end names. I would keep an eye on teams that are they looking to trade a veteran because they're a little too top heavy in certain spots, and tight end and receiver are going to be very popular picks for the draft in terms of mock drafts. I expect to see Tet regularly mocked to them. I expect to see Tyler Morton regularly mocked to them. And I also expect those positions to be priorities in the middle rounds. So I'm a little nervous. It's a lot of work to do in one off season. There are a pretty wide range of ways to go about it. And that's why I keep mentioning a veteran trade. I don't know. There's times there's only so much you can do in free agency and the draft. They only have so many picks, and in free agency they're going to have to spend at safety and defensive line and maybe right tackle, pending what happens with Morgan Moses. So I just think you got to be ready to think outside the box. You can't just sign like one person and bring back Tyler Conklin and think it's enough. You gotta be able to spread the field, and you got to be able to give Engstrand some weapons so he could take a stab at trying to build a dynamic offense like he helped build and contribute to in Detroit. You just need more weapons in the passing game overall. And the Lions, they had a diversity of ways to attack you with their receivers, with the speed at the receiver position, with what they could do at tight end, and with the 2 running backs. Aaron Glenn has, proactively mentioned speed. De'Ami Brown, again, a name that comes up, speed. Demarcus Robinson, some speed to open the field up a little bit. We know they have the familiarity with Tim Patrick, although we worry about him staying healthy. I think we're going to see, 3 new pass catchers between tight end and receiver added for the Jets overall. There's going to be some real turnover. The Aaron Rodgers AAU team is not going to be here anymore. And there was a lot of production that came from Devontae Adams over a lot of targets. Lazard, of course, was not one of the best signings of the recent years, and I'm glad that they're moving on. But it's going to be 2 interesting positions to watch for the Jets this year, and I think we'll see some early fireworks with this in the league year. So wanted to get this one in before the week started. Make sure you check back for a new Other Guys tomorrow, a new podcast Wednesday, and a new War Room in the middle of the week. Thank you, everybody, for listening, and we will talk to you soon.